Testing, 1, 2, 3, right. Talking to Ritchie Blackmore, lead guitarist of Blackmore's Rainbow.
No, Rainbow.
Rainbow, that's better. How have you enjoyed the Australian tour so far, Ritchie?
Well, we haven't started yet. We're about to start tomorrow, our first and last date in Melbourne. We did the biggest date tonight, the three of us, Jimmy Bain on bass, and somebody on drums, a friend of mine on guitar, and I play guitar. The big one's over, and tomorrow we just have, I believe, is it called the Festival Hall that we play at?
That's right.
Right. We play there tomorrow. We've already played there once, actually, yeah, being serious for a second. And obviously I'm going to say that the tour went very well. I could be lying, but in this instance I don't think I am. So we're very pleased with Australia. I quite like Australia. Once the initial stages of jet lag are gone, because it's so far to come. It's 22 hours, and that was coming from Los Angeles. And it was still so, it takes it out of you, it makes you very lethargic. Also, we're having a little bit of problem with the polarity system because we're near the South Pole, believe it or not, which is completely opposite to the northern hemisphere, because up there you have a different pull and gravity, so you get different polarity and different sounds. But apart from that, the audiences have been fantastic.
Can we do a history of yourself, going back right to the beginning?
Rather not.
Okay.
In what way?
Well, going back to,
Okay.
when did you get your first guitar?
I first picked up a guitar at 11 years old, and Father bought that for me. I went to lessons, classical lessons, for about 2 years. Then I went on to studying under Jimmy Sullivan, who's a guitarist who used to play with Tom Jones, a very good friend of mine, brilliant guitarist, not recognised very much. And after about 4 years of that, I was self-taught. That's why accounts for the bad way that I play at the moment. But I'm working on it after 20 years.
When did you actually play in your first band?
First band, I think, was when I was at school. We had a school band which had about 25 guitarists, one drummer who had a snare drum, and a bass player who wasn't plugged in. So you can imagine the sound. But it went down well at school.
Well, what about after that? What was your first major band?
My first major band would be, I suppose, Screaming Lord Sutch and the Savages. I learnt a lot of professionalism from him. He taught me how to leap about and act like a clown without being laughed at, basically, which is what I do. And but I think it's all part of the music. Our music is nervous aggression type of music, which incorporates kind of a very heavy kind of side of effects, kind of pulverizing people into the ground, basically, but without actually, we still use dynamics, but it's shock tactics, not to the extent that somebody like Kiss would be at. That's shock tactics as far as the way they're made up.
How do you feel about Kiss musically?
I've never really listened to them, so I don't know.
Do you feel you've been ripped off at any stage of your career by managers or promoters?
No, never, because I've always had a very good accountant. He's like a father to me. He always looks like he's a very, very astute businessman, and he knows. There was a few times when it looked doubtful, but we have certain people that back us that know how to deal with things like that. Whether it be in a gentleman's agreement or physical violence, they know how to deal with it. So we don't get messed around. In the beginning, before I joined, for instance, Deep Purple, which was a long time ago, 10 years ago, I used to find that I was turning up to clubs in Germany and they would take the passport and say, well, you have to play here for a month, which was fair enough. We'd be paid a certain amount every week, but we never got that money because they would always say we played too loud, too long, or we started late. There was always some excuse. This is the
hard early days.
Yeah, the German promoters, and we used to sleep in vans and shack up with any girls that had a bed, really. But it's makes you hard. It's like the army.
Moving on to Rainbow, when did you first seriously think of leaving Deep Purple And was it hard to leave?
No, it wasn't hard to leave at all. I'd had enough of all the little aggravations that come about after knowing people for 8 years, and managerial pressure was kind of hard. I did enough with Deep Purple I thought was valid. I thought it was time to move on. I didn't actually consider forming another band. I just wanted to leave at the time. I was tired of doing the same old thing. Ronnie came along, Ronnie James Dio, the singer. We got together and we made a song.
Was that Black Sheep?
That's right, yeah. And we recorded that, recorded the B-side, then consequently made an LP. Then, at which time I thought I should leave because I was more excited whilst making that record than I had been to making Stormbringer.
Mm-hmm. You were actually playing in two bands at the time? Or you were recording
I was,
with
yes.
Rainbow
I was recording with Rainbow and playing with Purple. We were doing Melbourne, I think, was one of the gigs that we
Sunbury.
did. I believe so. When was that, February?
January. January 75.
January I was writing songs with Ronnie.
Mm-hmm. Well, how did Rainbow actually first come into existence? How did you meet the other guys?
Jimmy comes from Scotland, and I met him through a friend of mine. Tony Carey is an Indian, comes from Connecticut in America. And Cozy used to play with Jeff Beck, who I know quite well, and I'd seen him perform, and I was quite impressed by Cozy's playing. Jeff has moved on to a kind of jazzy thing, which Cozy's not into so much, playing-wise, he is listening-wise. And I thought he was a very good drummer, very aggressive, very mean, and he was just right for the band. Great person.
That's the current band. The first band had a different lineup.
That's
Can you
right,
tell us a bit about that?
The first band was just a session band that was more or less Elf. That was Ronnie's band. I said, who should we employ to do these songs? And he just said, why not use our band? My band, Elf. I said, okay, why not? And we used them, but it was just for the recording. After that, when it took off the record and we thought seriously about making up a group, we had to consider professionals. Not that they weren't professionals, but people that would have personalities and project on stage.
Did you actually tour with the first band?
No, never.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about the tracks on the first album? For instance, the first track, the opening track, and the single "Man on the Silver Mountain." How did that come about?
Man on the Silver Mountain was written with Sherpa Tenzing in mind when he climbed Mount Everest. It's all about a man who climbs Mount Everest, and it's a silver mountain. He gets to the top and he finds that he's found the silver, which one can never express the feeling of situation according to the problem when one's put on top of a mountain and there's no silver. But he had actually found silver, and it's kind of, in retrospect, it's kind of a vague, abstract way of saying that life in its barest form would be seen from the top of a mountain. And this is why we wrote the song, because Ronnie was very much into that, and which, in finding the silver, he saw the rainbow. This is why the rainbow is involved too. And Man of Silver Mountain was written around Cadbury's chocolate bars, basically.
I noticed with Stormbringer and the first Rainbow album, you seemed as though you were going through a more soft and melodic phase.
Yes.
For instance, Soldier of Fortune, Temple of the King, and Catch the Rainbow.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about this stage? And
Yes, it was just a normal stage that everybody goes through. I like extremes. My extremes in music are rock, progressive rock to medieval Baroque music, which I love. I listen to the Baroque music, medieval modes and progressions and pageantry music, but I play rock and roll. I like the extremes. I don't like the in-betweens like jazz and soul, funk. Doesn't interest me, doesn't move me, doesn't grab me at all.
Do you think that this funk and disco revolution is going to inhibit heavy rock bands in the future? It seems to be sort of taking over in popularity.
Well, people have been saying that for the last 4 years. It's certainly very popular, but it's only popular to people that are tone deaf and just want to bash their feet up and down in a discotheque. But when it all boils down to it, if you put them in a room and said, right, listen to this or this, I think they would go for melodic music rather than just a thumping drum beat.
Can you tell us a bit about how you actually wrote Catch the Rainbow?
Catch the Rainbow was written around a kind of progression which was mentioned earlier, Little Wing. Jimi Hendrix, had that sort of vein running through it, but it wasn't modelled on that, but it had that. it must have been Subconscious at the time, which came out.
This is one of your feature songs on stage.
Yeah, I like playing it, but it's very, very quiet. It's a very emotional, personal song that you have to feel really good to play it, otherwise you can make yourself feel very bad. You can be very embarrassing if you don't play it very well, because there's no noise and heavy metal banging going on to cover up. It's a very, very soft song, simple.
Temple of the King was another acoustic track, similar in veins as to Soldier of Fortune.
Yeah, Temple of the King was taken from a yoga program I used to watch in Los Angeles. I don't do yoga, but I was just watching it. It was very relaxing, and one of the themes to the show was very similar to Temple of the King, the riff, and I just had the riff and the progression. I gave it to Ronnie, and he put the words to it, which is what we usually do, but not always.
Did you actually write the Black Sheep of the Family? Was that your idea?
No, it was written by some guy called Steve something or other. He's not a well-known writer. It's just a song I like very much. And I did it with Ronnie because Purple didn't particularly want to record it. They like to record their own songs, whether it be because they like to be included on writing royalties, I'm not sure. But I liked the song very much. I just wanted to record a single, Black Sheep of the Family, which we did, and I liked it very much. Was it put out as a single? No, because we had so many other better songs after that. It was really a one-off, which turned into an LP. You've got a classic type song on that first album, 16th Century Greensleeves, and you have the words on the cover. Can you tell us a bit about this track? It's a written. I live near Windsor Castle, and I'm very much into the Renaissance period, and it's written with Henry VIII in mind, about being locked up in a castle and blah blah blah, and Greensleeves is the theme, because Greensleeves being probably my favourite tune ever written, which was written 500 years ago by Henry VIII, of which not many people believe, but it was true. Or it was written by one of his court jesters and his head was cut off and he took the writing royalties, but it came from that court, the people of Henry VIII, and they put it down to Henry VIII because he was a very accomplished musician. And it all follows that I believe also in reincarnation. I'm into psychic research, and I feel very at home when I'm in that kind of era, or kind of relaxing playing that music. To me, it's very close. You recorded... It was hard rock, incorporating this progression of which they call modes. In those days, it was all the white notes on the piano. 8 white notes on the piano would be a mode, or 6 notes, depending on what period of time. No sharps or flats. An interesting song you recorded on the first album was the old Yardbirds song. Still I'm Sad. You made this into an instrumental. That's right, because I liked the song and I used to fiddle around with it on my tape recorder at home. And I always loved the song. It was a 13th century, 14th century Gregorian chant that the monks used to sing. And I was very inspired by that. I'm not too much into Gregorian chants, Ambrosian chants, things like that, but they do have their place late at night when I'm going to bed. Freaks a lot of people out because it sounds like ghostly church music or something, and they don't quite understand that. The notes being, again, a certain... They don't deviate from the set scale of like motets and things like this. Did you meet any of the guys in the Yardbirds? Jeff Beck or Eric Clapton? Oh yeah, I know Jimmy Jeff Page? Very well. Eric, I don't know quite so well, but I know. Jimmy Page? Yeah, I know him very well too. Who else was in that band? Yeah, Jim McCarthy. Keith Rell. Yeah, I met him. He died recently, and we were going to do a benefit, but unfortunately I wasn't in England to do it. So, yeah, when did Rainbow do their first tour, Ritchie? First tour was about a year ago, of States, about 8 gigs. And how did it feel playing totally new songs? Oh, it was very nerve-wracking at first, because all the responsibility was down to me. And if anything went wrong, I would get the blame. Consequently, I'm reaping the rewards at the moment, but that's the way it goes. Were you ever tempted to play any old Deep Purple songs? Not tempted, no. I'd been playing them for 8 years. We include Mistreated with a slightly different connotation. Yeah.
What made you decide on Mistreated as a stage song with Rainbow?
I don't think it was actually said. We didn't say all what we wanted to say at the time. I don't think with Mistreated in Purple. It was done very well, but I still think it could have been improved upon. I think it's been improved upon, but it's I can't be objective. It's for the listener to actually say.
What made you change the lineup of the band after the first album?
Well, I tend to change the lineup a lot for new blood, inspiration, and it takes a long while before you sort out the kind of the bad kind of things in a person. You find their weak points. I mean, there could even be a change in Rainbow. When we come back to Australia, it's more than likely there'll be a change.
Any idea when you'll be coming back to Australia?
Probably in a year.
Getting on to Rainbow Rising, how different was it recording with these musicians?
It was very, very different because everything was down to what I wanted, the sound I wanted. It was all left to me, so it was obviously a lot harder work.
It was much heavier. It was a much heavier sound.
Yeah, heavier. We went all out to do the heavy sound. The next LP will be a bit of both, we hope. But that was intentional to play that way.
Particular reason why it was intentional? Like, are you trying to aim for a more narrow market with heavier music?
No, we are a heavy band basically, but the band can play any type of music. But you must have a direction. You can't show that you're very. You kind of. It's no good having 15 different directions on an LP. It's showing that you can play soft, slow, and blues and this, because people have to identify you, unfortunately.
Were you happy with the way Rainbow Rising sold in America? Because I think it only got to about number 30 on the charts over there.
It could have done better in America. I was hoping for it to do better than that. But at the same time, I think, well, there's a lot of other records that are good that have been out and haven't sold half as much. There's a lot of bad records that have sold twice as much.
Where was that album?
It's exceptionally well in England and a few other places. Made up for it, I suppose. But America is our hardest place to crack at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, we've got this reputation, but you need more than a reputation in America. You're fighting against so many millions of bands. I sometimes wonder why I bother. Because I love music and playing it, but I get fed up with all the little hypes that go on. Whatever record company and radio comes out with, if they come out with the biggest hype wins type of thing, it's all a bit silly.
Yeah, you find that the biggest promotion always puts bands up into the top 10, whereas there's so many other bands that aren't really well known that might be better, but they're nowhere near the charts.
Right. That's what I liked about Australia, watching the television the other day in Sydney. Adelaide, and they were announcing who was on a local pub and who was here and who was there and what local bands are on that, which is nice for the band because it gets a mention. In England, America, they'd never mention that it was a local band. They'd just say this band is top of the hit parade nationwide, so they're being talked about, but they would never talk about some band that was big within that area of 2 miles. It's got out of hand, I think. It's not personal enough. If it was more personal, there'd be better music brought out, because it would give the younger bands, the bands that didn't have much popularity, more chance to come across. Whereas sometimes I think they just give it up because they can't break that national thing, a hard brick wall, whereas they've got to buy the DJ a drum kit or something, if it's a drummer, to get mentioned on the radio or television or whatever.
One thing I did notice about your medieval interest was in the cover of Rainbow Rising. A really incredible cover. Who actually did it?
Yeah, it was a friend of ours. He was Irish, and I don't know if you've seen, I've forgotten the name of the, he's a very, very famous painter. He accentuates the muscles of a body, and this is what we wanted in the hand. I've just forgotten his name at the moment. But it's surprising how many people cannot draw a hand properly, a fist. There was about 7 attempts, and they're all miserable. That was the best we came up with. In the end, I began to wonder whether it was worth bothering.
It's an incredible cover.
Yeah, it came out well in the end.
Can we talk about some of the tracks on the Rainbow Rising album, Ritchie?
No.
Well, let's take the opening track, Tarot Woman. Had a very organ-influenced beginning.
Yeah, that's because I couldn't think of anything myself. and so I let him have a go.
Mm-hmm.
It's that type of song. It's at a tempo where it needs elongated notes, of which an organ synthesizer can put forward. A guitar doesn't, unless it's compressed to hell or fuzzed up.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the intro was very good. Also, it was showing off that we had an organist synthesizer player that could play, that just didn't back what I did. He could play for himself. He could play solos.
Yeah, yeah. The next track, Run with a Wolf, how did that come about?
Well, it was just a riff we had together, and I threw down the riff, and Ronnie sang the melody, the lyrics. Very simple, really. There's no big hidden messages behind any of them, except for maybe from Ronnie's point of view. There is a hidden message behind my kind of basic rhythms and that, but it's not a message that's kind of one can talk about. Whereas I think Ronnie would be able to explain better the effects of the lyrics and what they meant. I never listened to lyrics personally.
You write all the melodies and you leave the lyrics to Ronnie?
Well, I write all the basic foundation and riffs, and sometimes Ronnie will write the melody. Or sometimes I'll hum to him a kind of vague rhythm, a vague melody, which he'll take up. He picks up so quickly, because he used to be a trumpeter in an orchestra, and he's very good at picking up on things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Very musical.
Starstruck is the obvious single on the album. Can you tell us a bit about this?
Oh, it's just about a girl that used to follow me around, which we thought was quite funny. It was terrible at the time, but she was French. She used to follow us around, and she was everywhere. Everywhere we went, America, no matter where we went, she turned up in the front row, waving and that. One day I was having my breakfast and I was looking out to my garden, and suddenly I saw the bushes move and her face popped up in the middle of the bushes, and I went, oh Christ, she's here again. So I set the dogs on her. And they're not violent, but they just started
licking her legs off.
Licking her face and things, and she ran off.
Do you close your eyes as an encore song?
Yeah,
do
sometimes. Sometimes we use that, or Light in the Black, depending. What about it?
Sounds to me a lot like influenced Bad Company. A typical Bad Company riff.
Yeah. Often, some days, things like I like Bad Company a lot.
Yeah.
Especially Paul Rogers, but sometimes things like that go through my head. Hendrix or something. I don't ever have any of their LPs, because that would be fatal. I'd be turning out riffs that they'd done 2 years previous, not knowing it. So the effect they had, I liked. It was a kind of combination of verse. I think they did It's All Right Now or something like that.
Yeah, All Right Now, yeah.
It was in a similar type of vein, although it still didn't come out as we wanted it to.
Would I be right in saying your favourite track on the album would be Stargazer?
Oh yeah, I like Stargazer very much, because of the orchestra. We had great fun having the orchestra dubbed on. That was original concept was made on the cello. I played cello, not for very long, 2 years I've been playing. And the only thing I could play on the cello was da 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 da, and a few of the riffs. But it was a different way of looking at a rock song through playing it on the cello. And it was quite interesting to see all these cellists playing something that I played within 2 months.
Yeah. You open up with two incredible solos on the second side, one in Stargazer and the other in A Light in the Black.
Yeah.
Is A Light in the Black any special message in that?
Not as far as I'm concerned. I don't go for messages. If I do, they're too intangible to talk about, too vague. But there again, Ronnie would explain that better to you. He wanted to know a deeper meaning to Light in the Black.
To me, it seems as though that album, you had a little more time in recording it.
That's right.
The production was so much better than the first album.
Yeah, it was.
Particularly on Cozy's drums.
That's right. We had to go back in the studio again and redo the drum sound, because we weren't happy with it. And that's why the drums are so prominent. We made a point, because on the first LP they were lost. Between pressing, compressing, limiting, bloody mixing, you lose everything half the time.
Yeah.
In the end, you get so sick of hearing the LP, you just want to put it down and forget about it.
Yeah. Your guitar work on Rainbow Rising was also a lot heavier than the first album.
Yeah. But
Any reason for this?
Yeah, as I said before, I like extremes. The first one, I wanted to show people I could play quietly. The second one, I wanted to show people I hadn't lost the knack of playing loudly, if that's what they want to hear.
Yeah, and they do.
So that's where that's at.
Yeah. Are you enjoying playing more these days than, say, 2 or 3 years ago?
I never enjoy playing. I don't like playing. The only times I like playing really are when I'm really smashed out of my head and I can get into it. There's so many, to me, I'm constantly unhappy with my sound, this and that, and things like technical faults, buzzings, overtones from the amplifier, and the amplifier break up and blow up, strings breaking, going out of tune. It's so frustrating sometimes. You wonder why you do it, but there again, you always come back to play it.
Are you a perfectionist?
Not a perfectionist. I just like things to sound as right as they can. A lot of people might say, "Oh, you're trying to be a perfectionist. He wants it right every night." Well, I do want it right every night, which is near on impossible these days to get the thing right. A lot of bands just get up on stage, boogie around, get drunk, and say, "This is it. We're having a good time. This is what it's all about." But I can't do that. If I have a bad sound, the next day I'll spend all day trying to rectify that sound. Which I've been doing on this tour because we've had technical problems with my amplification.
I believe the Sydney gig was very poor audio-wise.
Sydney?
Yeah. I think I read somewhere
That's
where
right, yeah. So I wouldn't do an encore because my amplifiers blew up.
They blew up?
Yeah, they blew up. It wasn't because of the petrol shortage, as somebody said. I wanted to set light to them in the end because I was so frustrated I couldn't do an encore after 25 minutes. I just wanted to blow them all up to show that I was really disgusted with the whole affair.
And angry.
But, I mean, the audience wanted an encore. We wanted to do an encore. I wanted to do an encore, but we couldn't. Because my amplifiers would just not play.
Well, I can say I've seen a lot of encores that bands have done before, but none come anywhere near close to the encores that Rainbow do for Do You Close Your Eyes.
Yeah, we do put a lot into it, so that's why it would be very easy for us to go on and do a simple encore and everybody to go home happy that we did another song. But that extra song takes so much out of us that we have to put everything into it, and it's a very flamboyant song, and we tend to jump around a lot. And we're not going to do that unless we've really got the initiative and everything's right to do it, which I hope we'll do tomorrow.
Yeah, you really open up on solos in that last encore, and you smash your guitar.
Yeah. Well, I can open up because I don't have to worry about the guitar being out of tune for the next song, because there is no next song. And this is partly why I go kind of crazy, because I can just let out all my frustrations without having to kind of
worry about
tune
the
up
next song
for 10 minutes before we play the next song.
I was a little bit disappointed that you didn't play more tracks off Rainbow Rising in your concert.
Well, it's a matter of taste. You know, we change from day to day to whatever we want to play. I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed one way or the other that we didn't play this song or that song. But in general, I think the act is quite acceptable.
I think Rainbow concentrate on a total audio-visual stage performance. The stage and light show is almost the best thing I've ever seen. Whose idea was it to put in this incredible rainbow?
It's a combination. It was an idea of mine which subconsciously I think probably was prompted by the California Jam, which had a miniature rainbow there. And I was very into kind of rainbows at the time, colours and things, but not colours in music, but just colours with sound, kind of all weirdo things. I just liked the name Rainbow. I thought, well, it would be nice to have a rainbow on stage. Then I spoke to Tony Mizuchi, who's the chief he puts ideas like that to work. I said, can you build me a model of what it looked like on stage? And I drew him what I wanted. He made a model up and it looked right. We said, great, we'll try this. And at first it was all like hell let loose, because like nobody knew what they were doing with the rainbow and the buzzings on my amp, because all the arc of the lights is a perfect magnet which doesn't agree with the amplification. But we've got it down quite pat now, really. I'm very glad we use it. And it's not just that we use a rainbow, it's an added bonus for the audience. We don't need a rainbow. We've done several concerts without it, with Jethro Tull, incidentally, who's my favourite artist, and we played with him without the rainbow. You know, the band's quite valid without a rainbow or anything else.
Did you support Tull on that concert?
Yeah, that was American. He's like God out there, so he should be.
Which was your favourite Jethro Tull album?
Oh Christ! That's all I play all the time.
Really?
He's streets ahead, years ahead of anybody. They don't know, which is typical. Let them keep playing their Rolling Stones records.
Yeah, A Passion Play was canned. What did you think of it?
When you say canned, what do you mean?
Critically canned, and I think
well, anything that's a little bit outrageous, demands attention, they don't like. It's the same as our music, can sometimes coming for a lot of criticism because we demand attention. We will not be, if you put on a Rainbow record or Led Zeppelin, it's not the type of music you talk over.
No.
Whereas you can get someone like, I don't know, who plays a folk guitar and drones on. Neil, what's his name?
Neil Diamond?
No, not Neil, the other guy. I don't know what his name is, but I've forgotten his name now. But you get a lot of these people that play inoffensive music, and people are not offended by it. So consequently, they go, yes. What they want to say is, well, I fell asleep halfway, but I believe it's quite acceptable. Buy it, people, and they don't say anything about it.
But when you put on a Rainbow album,
exactly.
you
You've
just
got to
have
sit
to listen.
there, blast it, and they go, what's this? I can't eat my dinner and watch television to this. Turn it off.
Yeah.
They get offended by it. But people, they don't want to hear really loud, raucous music, which has, I think, a lot of feeling as well as technique involved. And they shouldn't come to our concerts or listen to our records.
Are you enjoying playing on stage as much now as you used to?
It depends from night to night. I'm a very moody person, very susceptible to slight kind of... if the slightest thing can put me off on stage, or the slightest thing can turn me on, I never know when it's going to be a good or bad show.
It doesn't seem to affect your actual guitar playing, though, because we talked to you after Sunbury, and guitar-wise, that was one of the best concerts I think I've ever seen. And talking to you after the show, you weren't very happy with it.
I can't remember.
To the average listener or viewer, it was an incredible concert.
I really don't know much about it. We just flew in and flew out.
It was very cold.
Yeah, for a lot of money, and that was about it.
Yeah. I noticed you start your set with a song called Kill the King.
Yeah.
Is this a new song?
Well, it's a new song we threw together because we were going to open up with Tara Woman, but it didn't work.
Didn't it?
No,
Why didn't it work?
I don't know. The rhythm was wrong, and we couldn't get it together. It's a studio number. So I threw that in as a kind of, I got this riff together, and Ronnie sang over it. But we're not too happy about that song. But it's a raver number. You know, it's just to get a bit loose on, then we start to give them music afterwards.
Set. Yeah.
Whether we'll incorporate that, I don't know about that. It's a bit, nobody's really overstruck with that number.
When can we be expecting a new album from Rainbow?
About 79 should be one album. No, I like to. Another reason I left Deep Purple was I wanted to release one LP a year, and for it to be a good LP, as good as it could possibly be. But with Deep Purple, we were turning out like sausages all the time. We had to get in the studio after a world tour and turn out some, stuff, and sometimes it didn't work. I used to annoy me because I think the music's not what it's all about. It's a big hype. Let's have a product. We must have a product. It doesn't matter whether it's good or bad or indifferent. We must have a product. I'm sure in Bach's days, and Beethoven and people like that, not that they're on the same scale, but they just took their time and wrote their symphonies and concertos, whatever they wanted to. They weren't pressurized into touring the world and jumping into the studio with no ideas whatsoever, because to be in a hotel doesn't inspire one to write a song. It doesn't with me. The last thing I want to do is play music in a hotel.
What product do you think suffered with Deep Purple? Fireball
was very bad. Who Do We Think We Are was just average. Machine Head in Rock was very good.
What about the...
Burn was good.
Stormbringer?
That was okay, different. But I didn't like what was going to come next, you see. It was my idea of kind of incorporating a few funky rhythms with Glenn, because he was into that. So was Dave, so was John and Ian. But I wasn't getting off on what we were playing, although I suggested the riffs and that and the progressions. But they got distorted somehow. They came out like very cool, kind of trying to take off for black musicians, kind of soul music, which I kind of suddenly realised was not me. When you're into medieval Baroque music, it's about the furthest thing from soul, shoeshine,
nor Deep
jungle
Purple.
music, Fun?
Nor it's a long step from Deep Purple too.
Yeah, in a way. They'd all become bored of playing very loud. They wanted to be very cool and classy. which we did for one LP, but I could see it was going to carry on, which it did with Come Taste the Band.
Do you think so?
I think so, because when I listened to it, I've only heard it three or four times. That's exactly the way I thought they were going, which is nothing wrong with that direction, but it's not the way I want to go. So that's why.
I felt it was a heavier album,
Really?
more in the vein of Deep Purple.
Well, I think they were trying to get back the roots, trying to recover the things that they'd lost in a way. But I wasn't interested in doing that, not with the same personnel. There was too many hang-ups, egotistical hang-ups, including myself. It's 5 egotistical bastards, you know.
Yeah.
And we were all like, well, I want to play this and you want to play that. And it's got really silly. I mean, Soldier of Fortune, for instance, and Morris had to twist. I had to ask Glenn to play that on the fact that I would play one of his songs, because he hated it. To him, there was no rhythm there, and there was no jungle beat, so he said, oh, this is rubbish. I said, it's not that, it's a great song. It's kind of soft melodic.
Beautiful.
He just thought it was nonsense. Which is not putting Glenn down, he's just not into that music. And I thought, well, there and then, that's the end. I can't deal with these people that are narrow-minded, that just want to play shoeshine music all the time.
You didn't want to play on Hold On?
No, exactly. That was one song that the whole band wrote. I had absolutely nothing to do with whatsoever.
You did a little guitar solo.
Yeah, I did a solo just to show that I was there. But I was like, I could have been playing a solo on God Save the Queen, for all that mattered to me.
Yeah.
I was not putting the song down. I just didn't like it. That's not my type of music.
Where does Rainbow reside now?
All over the place. Some in Luxembourg, London, New York, and Los Angeles.
Where do you live?
I alternate from Surrey to Los Angeles and Hollywood. Basically, I stay in Hollywood most of the time. Tax reasons. England is faltering at the moment. Got to work themselves out. You know, I'm a conservative, and I will not work under the Labour rule. So that puts me out, as well as a lot of other people.
How do you find living in America?
Kind of hard, but it's acceptable. It's the second best. I'd love to live in Germany in one way. I've lived there a long time, but it's so in the woods because it's so remote from all the music that's going on.
I notice you do most of your recording in Germany.
Yeah, we do, because of, again, tax reasons. We can't record in America, we can't record in England, but we can record in France, Jamaica, or Germany, or Sweden. But German is like, that's, I kind of, I've lived there so long that it's like a second home.
What do you think of reggae music?
Well, I don't like it, obviously, because it's related to the shoeshine business, you know, But there's one song by a group called The Fox, or something like that, called Only You, is it?
Only You?
Fantastic song. It's one of my favourite songs. That and Dancing Queen by ABBA, I want to buy. People go, oh, ABBA, wow. How come you like them? They're terrible. They're not terrible at all. They're very, very smart. They're very, very good. And people find it very trendy to put down the biggest group. Because they're the biggest, people are going to put them down. You know, I'll put someone down if they're big, small, or indifferent if I don't like them. Like I said about AC/DC. I like them as friends, I think they're nice, but I don't like their music. Whether they be as big as ABBA or very small.
Evidently they're going fairly well in England at the moment.
I believe so, I'm not sure.
Have you heard Sherbet at all?
No. With a name like that. You never know.
How often do you practice your guitar, Ritchie?
It depends. Not very often at the moment. Just an hour a day when I'm to warm up, to get my right hand going.
Do you think about writing songs very often?
No, I'm not a very good writer. And that's my problem. I wish I could be a better writer. I've come to the stage now where I can throw out guitar solos that amaze people and do this and that, but it doesn't really mean much because I've done it all before. I'd like to be able to write proper songs, good songs, you know, that move people.
For instance?
For instance, what?
Is there any artists that you admire that write songs like you would?
Like Paul McCartney and Ian Anderson, especially Ian Anderson. His songs are just beyond me. They're beyond the public by the way he sells too.
He seemed to hit a point or a peak with Thick as a Brick, and since then he's been struggling to get back, although Minstrel in the Gallery was good.
If you lived in America, you'd you would be surprised, because he draws as many as Led Zeppelin and all the rest of them. Excellent artist on stage in every way. But his writing is something that never ceases to amaze me. Brilliant. I'd love to be in that, the way that he can put across a melody. I just write riffs and chord progressions. But I'm working on it.
What do you think of boogie bands like Status Quo and ZZ Top?
Well, ZZ Top is a good band. They've got a good guitarist. Status Quo I'm not so much into. It's all been done before with Chuck Berry, but there again, it's all been done before by everybody, whatever anybody does, it's all been done before.
The Beatles.
I don't like that boogie. Boogie music just doesn't do a thing for me.
The Beatles. What's your opinion of them?
The Beatles were excellent. Probably the best band that ever lived. Without a doubt. Along with Hendrix and Jethro Tull.
Do you pursue any other interests besides music?
Yes, as I said before, psychic research. I'm into how people tick, why they tick and what they're here for. Which I do supernaturally through certain ways. It's nothing to do with witchcraft or like borders on that. I know about that, but I'm not into black magic. I know about it and I observe it, but I'm not into it.
You don't believe in it?
No, I believe in it. Oh yeah. But I believe in white magic and I believe in God. And it's a whole thing with me.
How about UFOs?
Oh yes, I believe in that. I've seen lots of them. So why shouldn't I?
Have you found that audiences around the world have changed since you first started playing?
They do change. About every 3 years, there's a different cycle of people come along. I often say to the lads, watch this audience. They're very, very cool, clinical. Yet we get there and it's entirely the opposite way around. And then I'll rave about some audience somewhere, like, I don't know, and we'll play there and we'll die a death. It just changes. About every 2 or 3 years, the audience changes.
I believe there was a concert you played with Deep Purple in Germany. There was a guy who was in the audience that threatened to shoot you because you weren't playing well. Is that right?
No. There was some guy who didn't threaten to shoot me, but he was on LSD. He had a Colt 45 and he was just firing at anything he could see. So we were very vulnerable being on stage, and he was up in the balcony. Luckily they arrested him and took the gun off of him. We were lucky in that respect.
Yeah.
But you do get the cranks, especially in America. But you do feel very vulnerable up there. If somebody wants to throw something, have a go at you. One thing I won't tolerate is someone throws one thing at me. Then I go off stage and we have a certain security lot which get down into the audience. And I just can't take people throwing things because if they don't like it, they should leave.
Have you any favourite rock guitarists?
Jeff Beck's good. He's a great guitarist. Apart from him, Mick Taylor can be a great blues player. No, I'm into violinists, cellists. Might sound very pseudo to kind of mention that and say, oh wow, I don't think that I'm that particularly good. It's just that there's a lot of bad guitarists around and I know exactly what they're playing. So after playing 20 years, you tend to know, except for people like Segovia and that, but I'm not really into classical guitar too much, funny enough. I'm into classical organ and violin.
And Bach?
Oh, obviously Bach is my favourite composer of all time.
And of course your favourite rock band is Jethro Tull?
Yeah, but they're not a rock band, they're just, I don't know what they are, but they're incredible what they are.
There's been a new album released in Australia last week called Made in Europe, Deep Purple. Have you heard the album?
On and off. I heard it, I think, a few times in the studio, cuts from it. But having played that set for a long time, I wasn't really interested. And I was leaving a band at the time where we made it.
Yeah.
As I announced my departure, they said, well, do a favour for us, just record a live LP. I said I would. I did it, but I didn't want anything to do with it. So it's come out now. Great.
Did you help produce it?
Oh no, it had nothing to do with producing, mixing, anything like it.
On that last tour, was it actually said to the people that would be the last Deep Purple tour?
No, not at all. because they thought of carrying on, so they didn't want to say that they were about to break up. They'd rather have it that I would leave, which is fair enough. That's what I said that they should do. At first, the first week, they all wanted to break up, but then the management talked them into staying together with another guitarist. And Tommy Bolin was a great guitarist. He's very unkind to his body, but if he gets out of that, he'll be a good guitarist.
Yeah, I find he's more of a studio guitarist than a live guitarist.
Maybe.
I saw him on stage with Deep Purple.
I saw him on stage with Deep Purple, yeah.
I think he almost aborted the way they played on stage live.
Wow. He's probably just not into that way of style of playing. I know Tommy, he likes to make an LP in a couple of days. He doesn't like all this rehearsing and playing riffs. He just wants to get on with it.
When you, what are you going to do when you actually get too old to play, Ritchie?
Well, I'll never get too old to play. You always become wiser. You get too old for the finicky kind of pop market, which is kind of... well, I'll never give up guitar playing. I'll always play, because I love to play, and I'll play the cello. I'd like to be in a quartet playing classical medieval music to relax by, but I always do like to get on stage and bash out a few things. But it can be difficult, because when you have Bay City Rollers to contend with and that type of market, I personally don't want anything to do with that lot and the Osmonds. Not being detrimental to them, because the young people do need young people to associate with. It's no good kind of old timers coming on stage and playing. But
how do you feel about Mark Bolan?
I don't feel anything about Mark Bolan. I don't know. I used to know him. I haven't seen him for years. Don't really know anything about him.
David Bowie, he sort of led a new revolution on dress and style of playing with Space Oddity and Life on Mars and things like this.
Yeah, right. Well, you could say that, but you could also say that I wasn't in on that revolution. You know, I didn't take any notice of it. It's just publicity stunts and hype. He's a very nice guy, but he has to rely on a few, he's not the world's best singer, so you have to kind of
compensate.
Yeah, with a few things.
What can we be expecting of Rainbow in the future? Have you any plans to take Rainbow to the top, rock-wise?
Not necessarily. I think your own point, but I would never consider myself in competition with those bands. I hate that. That's what I loathe about the business, as well as interviews, which I'm doing now, is competition. You should be just get up there and play and
enjoy yourself.
Yeah, which is so hard because you have to compete. It's only natural that you want to be better than the next person. Human nature. And I'll leave it at that.
Can we do a promo? One promo, please.
Rather not. Not promos, I don't do those.
Just saying something like, this is Ritchie Blackmore for 3DB.
No, I don't do that.
Okay.
I never do that.
Okay. I do appreciate